There is an old story about a man who spent 30 years searching for water in the desert. He dug wells, he studied maps, he followed the advice of elders, and the path of animals and the angle of certain grasses blending in the wind. And every time he found water, it tasted wrong, too bitter, too flat, something always missing, until one day an old woman watched him spit out another mouthful of water and walk away in disgust. She said nothing. She simply handed him a small mirror. He looked at it, confused. She said quietly, "Have you ever considered that the water is fine?" Pause there. Because something in that story may have landed in a very particular place inside you. Let it stay there for a moment. There is the question at the heart of this inquiry. What if the world you are experiencing right now is not simply arriving at your eyes the way light arrives at a camera? What if the one doing the seeing is already present inside everything being seen? This is one of the most ancient and least understood observations in the entire history of human inquiry. And it is this, listen carefully. The quality of your perception is inseparable from the quality of your presence. The world does not arrive neutral. It arrives already shaped by the instrument receiving it. Let me show you what this means. In the most ordinary terms possible, two people walk into the very same forest. One of them is a painter. She sees the afternoon light break between the birch trees and the air golden. She notices the geometry of shadows on the path, the way the moss makes the stones look like they are breathing. She feels wonder. She wants to linger. The other person just received a phone call about a medical test result, and it is bad news. He walks into the same forest, same trees, same light, same golden air, and he sees none of it. He sees only the tunnel of his own fear. The trees crowd him. The silence feels heavy. The light does not reach him. Same world, different universe. Now here is where most people stop the inquiry too soon. They hear this and they say, so it's all in our heads. Or they say, so perception is subjective. And they file it away as if something interesting, a philosophical observation, just like that, and move on with their day. But the ancient teachers were pointing at something far more radical than that. They were saying that you cannot find the boundary between what you are seeing and who is doing the seeing. That the world appearing to you right now is not separate from the awareness in which it is appearing. In other words, you are not a separate witness standing outside the world looking in. The world is arising inside the very awareness you are made of. The canvas and the painting are the very same substance. Only the painting forgot. Think about the last time you watched someone you love across a crowded room. The room was full of faces, and yet that one face pulled the light toward it. The room did not change. The light did not change. Something in you organized the entire scene around that one presence. You thought you were simply seeing. You are actually composing. Every single thing you have ever experienced has been experienced through the instrument of who you are. Your memories, your longing, your unfinished grief, your quiet assumptions about how things work, your story about whether you are loved, your belief about whether you are safe. These are woven into the very texture of what you see. There is a Sanskrit word worth knowing, Viksepa. It comes from the root Vik meaning scattering, Kshepa meaning to throw. The mind throws itself outward onto the world and then mistakes what it has thrown for what is actually there. It is like sitting in a cinema, completely absorbed in the film and forgetting that you are the one holding the projector. The screen seems to be lit from within. The characters seem real. The danger seems real. The love seems real. And when somebody taps you on your shoulder and says, "Look behind you," there is a moment of almost startling recognition, a remembering, a back to reality moment. Now, this teaching is not saying the world is not real. It is not dismissing your experience. It is not telling you that your grief was just some story or that suffering of others does not matter. That is misreading, a shallow misreading. What it is pointing to is something far more intimate. What is the nature of the one perceiving the world? There is the most direct path into a genuine relationship with reality. Because here is what shifts when awareness begins to recognize itself in what it sees. Things become unexpectedly tender. Something unexpected happens when awareness stops running from itself. The world stops feeling like something happening to you. A difficult person is still difficult. A painful situation is still painful. But underneath the difficulty, underneath the pain, there is something that is not threatened by it. Something can hold it the way the deep water holds a storm on the surface, all the turbulence happening above, and below, absolute stillness. This is not indifference. This is the difference between standing in the rain, cursing the sky, and standing in the rain knowing you are also somehow the sky. The ancient teachers called this Pratyabhijna, recognition. From the Sanskrit roots, prati meaning toward or again, abhi meaning fully, and gna meaning to know. To fully know again. To remember something that was never actually forgotten, only temporarily obscured. Recognition. The self experienced fully as the awareness in which all of this is appearing right now. The sound of this voice, the weight of your body, the quality of this moment, all of it happening inside something vast enough to hold it. Something has no edges, that is not afraid. So when we sit with this inquiry, that the quality of perception and the quality of the perceiver are inseparable, we can receive it as an invitation to turn very gently and look at the one who is looking, to notice what quality of being is present right now. Is there contraction? Is there tightness, a sense of holding something at arm's length? Or is there openness, a willingness for things to be exactly as they are? Nothing is wrong. Both are simply the world showing you there is who is meeting it. The man and the desert eventually stopped digging. He sat down beside a well he had abandoned weeks earlier, and he lowered the bucket into the water. He tasted the water, clear, cool, sweet, completely without bitterness, and he wept, because something in him had grown still enough to stop deciding what it should taste like before it arrived. That is the practice, not a grand transformation, not a final arrival, a moment of willingness to meet what is here before the story about it has been written. And in that moment of willingness, something opens, something that was always here, waiting the way water waits at the bottom of the well, that has always been full.